Welcome to Cooperville.
Do you know what's fun to do in Cooperville? Pack up your shit and get the fuck out!
Listen. www.welcometocooperville.com. Who the fuck says www anymore? I can't even say it. www. Stop that. The Welcome to Cooperville podcast. On demand anywhere quality podcasts are available. And some places where cheap podcasts are available.
And the local gas station has some.
Subscribe, get updates, feel better about your life. Welcome to Cooperville.com.
Check.
Welcome to Cooperville! Make sure you use a coaster. The wife gets upset when we leave rings on the tables.
Joe Cotela and I ran into each other. Well, actually, it was all planned and preordained. The single Anti-Everything had just dropped and hit radio and was skyrocketing up the charts. And it was like fucking random Tuesday. Dead is rolling through, small town Wisconsin. They're like, we're gonna stop by. I'm like, oh fuck. And from there, we built the coolest thing about. I remember that you guys did 2 acoustic songs. And, Anti-Everything and that whole album, Misanthrope was just, it's heavy, it's aggressive, it's just like, it finally was like, it grabbed rock radio listeners by the balls and was like, hey, remember when we were heavy? Remember when we kicked ass?
Right.
That's what the album was. But to see you guys come and do like this stripped down version of a couple of the singles from the album. And then David sent me like a studio acoustic version of Anti-Everything that you guys had done. And I was like, man, you guys just fucking got it all. You're not just like one avenue. You can do so many things. That's how Mr. Joe Cotela and I got
Acquainted.
Yes.
No, thanks. I mean, that's important. That's cool to hear. That's important for us too, because we like so many styles of music, and like we've been in bands, and things in our lives, and we've played different styles and things like that. So I think it's important to us to be able to be creative in different ways, and because there are some heavy bands that are just heavy and maybe they're not capable of being something else. And then there's
right.
The same thing. There's bands that are maybe a little more chill, whatever you call them, and they don't really have that thing inside of them where they can be heavy. And I think for us, we have both, and we admire both, and we're fans of both, and so it's really that was something with Misanthrope, like you said about the album and radio, is there's a big thing with us where we wanted to bring that heaviness back to the radio and make it, because rock and metal, it needs to be dangerous, and a lot of times, like more recently, it feels like it is again, but especially 3 or 4 years ago when we were starting it, we were maybe not too stoked on a lot of the stuff we were hearing from a lot of it. Obviously we enjoyed a lot of other things, but so.
No, it's been a crazy ride for you guys, and we got so much to talk about in the next hour or so. I know I saw that there's some excitement brewing with the new record coming out, so we'll talk about that in here a little bit. But I want to take you back to before Dead, before the other bands and stuff. Early influences is something I always love hearing about, cool. From artists, because there's maybe generic listeners, they hear a sound and they go, well, obviously, they were influenced by one genre. This is obviously their 8-ball corner pocket, but I tend to find that the spectrum is really wide for artists and stuff that they grew up on and artists they admired. So for you, whether it was, on the radio or it was, somebody else in the family that was listening to something, where do you remember music first being like, oh shit, that's my gig. That's something I can get into.
Right. So there's a couple of, I guess, bringing that up, there's a couple of things that come to mind. And my parents say that the first thing when I think they said I was 2 or 3, and we were listening to Bruce Springsteen. I loved Born in the USA. I loved that song, I guess. And they said I used to run around the house and sing that when I was like so little. I don't remember that, but so that's the first thing I think of. Man, there's a couple of things, I think of just, there's always music, like I was always kind of pushed into loving music. My parents love music, Neither of them were musicians. My mother's an artist. She did graphic design and stuff like that, and she paints and draws and all this kind of stuff. I imagine I got my artistry from her. My dad doesn't really sing that well, although he does a pretty good Elvis. He loves Elvis. So they would like quiz me in the car. We'd go to my cousin's house to go to like a pool day when I was little, and they'd have on their music, and Black Sabbath would come on, and my dad would be like, "Who's this? What song is this?" and that kind of thing. Same thing with he really raised, he was way into Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, that kind of thing. And then my mom was a little more like the Beatles, things with melody, maybe the Police, stuff like that. So I would grow up listening to a lot of that stuff. And I just always, I always loved music. Like, my dad got me, one of my first things I remember getting was Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. I loved Joan Jett. Guns N' Roses was one of the first like things I remember getting. And George Thorogood, his live album, George Thorogood. Those are the first ones I can remember. And then as far as, and that was their music,
right.
and that was like their music that I inherited from them. And then as I got a little bit older, when I started listening to the radio and like recording songs off of it, we had a really good station out here. Well, we had 98 KUPD out here, which is still going, and they're the shit. But there's another channel called Z-Rock, and I remember, I remember Nirvana was definitely one of the big bands for me. And that was when I got a guitar, so I could be Kurt Cobain. And then Metallica Black Album came out around that time. Pantera came out around that time. White Zombie, and that was when I was kind of finding my own stuff. And then not long after that, Korn came out. Rage Against the Machine was way into that. I would skateboard with my neighbors, and he was way into like alternative and punk, so he got me into NoFX and the Flaming Lips. I love the Beastie Boys, all kinds of stuff. Huge Bob Marley fan too. So I mean, like all kinds of things. And there's different periods in my life, that was like coming into when I was gonna first start a band, and I was listening to all that kind of stuff. I think, I'm not sure if I'm going too far off of what you asked. Yeah. And then it goes from there. It goes into kind of finding out about hardcore music, and finding out about like way into punk rock. And then simultaneously, like new metal and stuff was kind of happening around that time. So I was kind of simultaneously loving Deftones, Korn, Rage Against the Machine, and then loving, like I said, NoFX or The Offspring or, Bad Religion, stuff like that. So like really like the two of those were my prominent, types of things. And then as well as grunge. I mean, that's the thing, is I love everything like we were discussing, Temple of the Dog, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, all that stuff. So
yeah, I think, when you talk about parental influences, and I got a great story I'll hit you with about my kid in the back seat, and I do the same thing to him, or I started to for a while there. Then he got too smart, and I'm like, well, this is pointless. But no, I remember growing up, and like I had like, my parents were divorced. My dad was really into like old country stuff, like like old country, like Hank the First, and George Strait and things like that. So I had a lot of like eclectic music. My mom was into Heart, and so I got some rock and roll stuff, but also Elvis and the Beatles and things. And I found like I tried to for a while completely void myself of all of those things. Like I remember like the early 90s getting into like fucking Cypress Hill and like fucking House of Pain. Like I listened to the Fine Malt Lyrics album until it didn't work anymore. Like I was just like, oh my God. And then just before that, it was a weird like mixture of, I got the Guns N' Roses Appetite cassette tape, and I got it like I think from my like stepbrother, stepsister. I'm not sure if they gave it to me. I was like, this is cool. And I remember bringing it home, and my mom saw the cover art on the inside, with like the alien attacking the chick, and she's got her fucking panties on her, and so she like took the cover art, and I still had the cassette tape. But it's so interesting to find out about from artists who all the influences that they have, and anytime they when you guys I'm sure get into the songwriting stuff, Dead has kind of found their wheelhouse. I think, and I'm guessing when you go into album 2 you'll see some growth from what Misanthrope was. but to hear all these sounds that were a part of your life that influenced you to not end up, Joe Cotela, real estate agent, Tempe, Arizona. Here's my card, and I can just see you popping up on the fucking Instagram doing videos like, hey, as you can see, all these, just in case you're looking for a side gig, there's an idea for you. But all these influences, and obviously not just listening to them, but either seeing them in concert or watching, back when they used to play music videos on MTV. Seeing artistry and how somebody like Chris Cornell performs on stage, and then seeing how like a NoFX or Flaming Lips perform on stage, and all these different influences that rain down upon you and end up developing you into an artist. And then obviously, putting yourself as, music as a career. It's a really cool story. My kid thing though, cause you're talking about your parents quizzing you in the back seat, AC/DC.
Sure.
Is one of those bands I always mention, just because AC/DC has done this thing where they can just sound like every single AC/DC song, and they've done it since, the 70s. My kid can now, and this is probably 20 years of radio influenced on him, will always differentiate between Brian Johnson AC/DC and Bon Scott AC/DC. He's like, oh, yeah, that's definitely Bon Scott. I'm like, it took me like 15 years to do that, and he's 9, so I feel like
I can't do that.
I know.
That's, I'm sure I could do it more so based on if the quality of the album sounds like it's older or newer. That would be it. Like, I wouldn't really know though.
Yeah, I always got to go like try to picture which album it was from. Like, okay, what is that? Is this the Back in Black album? Is anything before that? No, it's crazy how music can how it influences you, and how your parents, and even if they're not musically inclined or they're not really into it, how their taste can kind of push you in one direction. No, I always find it fascinating to see like, what got you through not only your youth, but then, the influential years of, high school, and then, moving on to finding a career in it. So, obviously there was bands before Dead. When you got together with the guys from Dead and the band was formed, I don't want to say the secret sauce, but what was it like? They're like, yeah, okay, you know what, this feels right. The album was successful, award winning. Was there 4 singles off of that record, that went not just to radio, but obviously to XM. When were you like, yeah, this is the groove, man. This is it. These are my guys, and let's fucking go and dominate.
Yeah. Well, being in being a musician and being in bands for such a long time, the way that Dead happened was so different than anything that I've ever experienced. We really did it for fun. I don't think there was any plan of doing what we ended up doing. Mm-hmm. And so I think, we did it because I think it was David and myself, and then our friend Matt Good, who isn't in the band anymore, but he started it with us. He's a producer too. He did the newest Asking Alexandria, and he was in the band from first to last. And anyway, so the 3 of us were just hanging out talking about how awesome, certain eras of music were, and we were just like, it's so easy to record now. We're like, let's just go be creative and make something for the hell of it, And then we did that, and then we enjoyed it so much. We kept writing, we kept making music, and when we first started it, it was very heavily influenced. There was an idea of Slipknot and Marilyn Manson and all that kind of stuff. But then there's always the influence, like you said, that's always with you. I mean, once you've listened to, and you mentioned Cypress Hill, once I've listened to the Black Sunday album a million times, that's going to be a part of me after that, or if it's Blink-182, I've listened, or if it's anything. I mean, it's so many different things. So you can try to do something, but it's always going to kind of go through that process, and it's going to go through the factory of your body and your mind and all that stuff, and it's going to come out your own way. So I think there was an initial intention of being really heavy and really violent, and because the band that I had done before Dead was more about the songwriting for me, and I felt like I was almost at that point. I was frustrated. I was just trying to kind of like write big songs and that kind of thing. When I look back on it, I feel like that's where I was doing. Not to say that it wasn't coming from my heart and everything like that, but it wasn't as much as I maybe wanted it to. And now I'm you know, I appreciate what I was doing at the time. I'm just thinking of how I was feeling about 3 or 4 years ago. And so Dead was really just like, I want to have fun with music. I want to just do whatever the fuck I want to do. That's what Dead was supposed to be, and that's what it is when we started it. And you know, we did some songs and we just got excited about it, you know, whatever it was, we got excited about it. And so we kept running with it. And really the goal initially was to just be a heavy band. We're going to play at like a dive bar, you know, and just be heavy. And that's it. I was almost going to kind of not play music and focus on it as much as I was, you know, I was going to get into something else maybe. And then it just kind of took on a life of its own, and everybody got excited about it and everybody wanted to work with us. And so we're like, all right, let's see this through. And you know, it made for some, you know, some of the most proud I've been in things I've worked on in a long, you know, forever. So
tell me about the context, the eyes. It was, where does that, I mean, obviously we talked about some influences and stuff, you know, it definitely, you know, with the name of the band and kind of the vibe that it was given off, unique, you know, a unique facet of the band. Where was that idea initially ignited from?
You know, we're just trying to do, again, just trying to do whatever we wanted to do. You know, we weren't thinking of it being on a national level. So we were just thinking that, you know, that would look cool. That would look kind of crazy. So we were trying things out. We tried out some masks. On the early days, the first maybe 20 shows, we all wore these like black straight jacket looking things, and we were all in unison with it. And we felt like maybe that was a little too whatever for us. And then we did the eyes and they looked sick. We were going to do black, and then we did the white, and we felt like the white popped a little bit more on stage, and it looked a little bit crazier when you know, cause what it was we put them in, and it was this cool thing of like, when I looked at my friend, it made me feel weird. I was like, oh, that makes me feel kind of street. You look fucking crazy with that. And so we all felt like we all looked kind of, and we're like, well, it makes you feel a certain way when you see it. And that's a big thing. Like, I feel like in the past I was very against aesthetic, you know, and I think that was partially from that punk rock ethos, and that hardcore ethos of kind of just being, you know, just being legit, not being campy at all, stuff like that. And I think that was such a big influence on me for such a long time, you know, and I went through my phase where I was an elitist and I hated everything. I only liked like 5 bands for a couple of years, you know, that whole thing. Yeah. And so anyway, it's just all part of my journey. But yeah, the eyes, we just thought it looked sick, and it went with, you know, Dead, and it made us feel like when you put them in, you feel a little bit different. And so it was kind of us putting our toe into the water of that idea of aesthetic, coupled with music, you know.
You know, a lot of the songs on that album, you know, have an undertone to them. And, you know, I think if you listen to them, I don't want to say at face value, but your casual listener who is just kind of a passerby, maybe hears a chorus and doesn't really interpret the lyrics, you know, from what I feel is the way to interpret it. It has an anger to it, but I think when you dissect the lyrics, or if you watch a lyric video, or you know, open up or Google search, I guess nowadays they don't open up the album anymore. They download it and they do the Google, you know, lyrics.com or whatever.
Right.
But there's a definite energy and a lot of, you know, what sounds like negativity, but when you dissect the lyrics, there's a lot of positive, you know, self-awareness. There's a lot of, you know, forward thinking, a lot of, you know, there's a lot of positivity in music that maybe typically can get stereotyped as negative, but yet the, you know, lyrics that you put down, they have this kind of gravitational pull towards something that is light, that is positive, which when you know, couple it all together with, I think, you know, with the eyes and with the band and with kind of the, you know, even the album cover, it really creates this, you know, that album was just, wow. I mean, it had all these elements in it. And it was, I think, if you listened to it and if you interpreted it and you felt it, really had just positive vibes ringing out of it that maybe some people missed out on.
Yeah, I could see that, you know. I guess if you look at it at face value, you know, we got kind of lumped in with like the idea that we were a rap rock band, or a new metal band. And, you know, of course, like I was saying, you know, we're influenced by that genre. But if you listen to the whole album, I mean, there's so many different styles and stuff, things in there. You know, and I think like for me, the most, you know, genre wise, as far as lyrics go, I mean, the best lyrics for me is punk and hardcore music, you know, and I felt like with kind of using the influences of that new metal influence and everything, I really wanted to have the lyrics be with a, you know, angry, but there's such a positive unifying thing with punk hardcore, you know, that kind of thing. Sorry, I'm getting a phone call. I'll get this off.
It's okay.
There's such a unifying thing with those genres, and that's been such an important thing for me. And you know, there's times where I hear a song and it's just straight angry, straight everything. I mean, you know, and I can appreciate that, you know, sometimes, especially if I'm maybe at the gym or I'm just having like, you know, one of those really terrible days. But I've reached just a point in life, I guess maybe a point of maturity, where you know, I need to feel like there is something that comes positive out of everything. You can look at, you know, if everything goes wrong for you for like a whole week, maybe it was supposed to, and you learn something from it. I've had everything go wrong, and it went wrong so things could go right later. You know, whatever it is, you know, so I guess it's, you know, just something inside of me, I think that had to be there. And I want it to be self-empowering. You know, when I listen to, you know, one of the best ones I can think of for me is Pantera. You feel like you're, you know, a million miles tall when you listen to Pantera, you know, or Slipknot, or, you know, a lot of other bands. And, you know, you can only think of so many off the top of your head, but there's something about that really, really empowering, part of music, you know, that I really love. It can change your whole day around. It can give you the strength to do things. Maybe if it's to get up for the day and go to work, if it's to go to the gym, if it's to not do something negative, you know, in your day, whatever it is, whatever you need it for. And that was always something that was important to me in music. So I guess I just kind of innately put it in there.
When you talk about those artists, and I think, you know, I know on my playlist it's on there, but you know, I go running each morning, and it's a weird, mornings are always weird for me because I never was an early morning guy. You know, when I started getting into it, as it's kind of a finding myself kind of thing, and meditation and all this other stuff, you know, running became such an essential part of it. And it's so weird that you know, in my morning I would go from getting up, having a cup of coffee, meditating, to running to Anti-Everything, or, you know, or Pantera, you know, Vulgar Display of Power, or, you know, Slipknot, you know, all the heavy stuff that you mentioned. Right. And not because of angst or anger or anything, but just because to get through things that, you know, physically challenging, mentally challenging, even after moments of clarity, it's amazing what that style of music can, you know, perpetuate your mind to tell your body to, and all of a sudden you go, damn, I can't believe I just ran an under 8 minute mile. That's, you know, I remember telling myself before I started running, like, the only time, if you see me running, like, fucking run with me, because there is scary shit behind us, like a bear, right, or the zombie apocalypse is coming. Like, get on board, dude, because bad things are about to happen. But, you know, music has always found a way. And I think you talk about the gym, or you talk about even emotionally having a trying day or a trying week or a trying year. There's something about heavy music and metal that is, and you've probably heard stories from fans directed towards you, like, hey, this song was able to, you know, propel me through this hard time. And, you know, it goes back to the power of music and what it can do. And you being a piece of that puzzle, it's gotta be gratifying, you know, for you guys.
Yeah, it is, man. It feels good when people, when people say that kind of thing, of course, you know, because I know how important it is for me, and how important it was, and I'm sure how important it will be in the future, you know.
You mentioned Korn being an influence. I know you guys have had a chance to share the stage with Jonathan Davis and the guys. Have you had, and you know, that's on a laundry list of artists that you've had a chance to tour with and be on tour with and share the stage with.
Right.
Was there a moment when you maybe for the first time met or got to play with a band like that you had a starstruck moment that you were like, holy shit, I was jamming out to Follow the Leader. I remember when I was, you know, umpteen years old, and now, like, I'm here, like, I'm side stage. Holy fuck. Like, did you ever have one of those moments, you know, in your career thus far?
Yeah. I mean, it's been happening for a long time, you know. there were some really important bands. A band called there's a band called Glassjaw that all of us, it's pretty much all of our favorite bands. And in our old bands, we got to open for them and meet them. And I mean, there's been so many times in my life where I've gotten to meet people. As far as with the Korn on that tour, the first tour we did with them, we did a couple now, but that first one, there was a day where I remember looking over to my right and Jonathan Davis was on that side of the stage watching us, and then I looked to my left and Corey Taylor was on the other side of the stage watching us, and that was such a cool thing to have two of my major influences standing there watching me play, and I guess one of the biggest compliments is getting validation from your influences, right?
Yeah.
So that's a moment I remember. I mean, and just really, being in an elevator together, all of us riding up, goofing around, that was cool. There's been so many moments, in all of the music I've done, where I've met so many people. So I guess by this point, I don't really get starstruck or anything. And it's not that I feel like I'm necessarily deserve. I don't know about the word deserve. It's kind of a loose word, like to say I deserve this or I deserve that. But I feel like I've put the work and the time in to be able to hang with people.
Yeah.
Like I'm cool to be here. Like I'm okay to be here. You know what I mean? I guess is the way I look at it. So I don't get real starstruck. And I've met a lot of people that would be deemed as being starstruck, but I can definitely appreciate all those experiences. And I can definitely say that, I love it. And it's, it was important to me for sure.
All those stages, it brings me to thinking about, arena size and, having played major festivals and being on huge stages with large catwalks and having all this room to kind of roam about and do your thing, to intimate clubs where you're kind of like, me to my computer screen, you to your phone, away from, fans in the front row. The things that you've seen, and been witness to, the show that you're putting on obviously is drawing these people all to one location, one in front of the stage, or, when you're at a festival, that environment can be widespread, yet they're all out there. What goes through your mind when you're, standing in front of, your fan base, in the intimate clubs, your fan base plus other bands' fan base, when you get to be a chance to be on tour with others, when you just, do you ever have a moment on stage? I know it's a high energy show. There's a lot of moving around. There's a lot of, just going on. But do you ever get a second to just kind of, breathe it in and go, this is my life. This is my career. This is where we are at this point.
Right. I think I do that. Especially on those festivals, sometimes, you're standing in front of whatever, if it's 10,000 people or something, I'm pretty lost during those times when there's that many people. I'm in some other thing. I don't know if it's completely in the now. I don't know if it's a complete moment of clarity where my thinking mind shuts off and I'm just completely alive. So there's not a lot of thoughts I can have flashes when I think of it. I can see being in some of those places and on some of those stages. When I'm in the smaller club, I'm a little more cognitive. I'm a little more aware in those moments, just because I'm a bit more, it's something that I've done for such a long time. Right. But I think there are moments, where I'll step back and maybe just have a second to take a smile, and embrace it. When you hear that crowd roar, and it's for you, and it's for your all the things that you've worked on and your creativity, and something that you worked on thousands of miles away and slaved over and etched out and carved into what you wanted it to be. It's an honor to do that, and I'm appreciative of it, so much. So I do, there are times, but especially on stage, and I think most artists would tell you, or at least, with such a high high energy show, you're just going, you know, you're just, I'm doing push-ups before I go on. I'm listening to, you know, fucking Black Breath and Strife and just, you know, just heavy, you know, stuff. And I'm just getting in that zone, you know? So I'm in such a zone. But yeah, I think I do take a second to stop and smell the roses every once in a while. But sometimes not. Sometimes I'll get off stage and I'll be like, I have no idea what just happened. You know? It's such a strange feeling. I was there. I just wasn't, like I'm saying, like I was there and I was doing it. I just wasn't necessarily thinking about it. I was just living, you know, which is such a gift to just even have that half hour to 45 minutes of time, where it's almost like meditating, where you're shutting off that thinking mind and you're just completely alive. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, 100% present in the moment. I mean, there's no past, there's no future. There's just that moment right now. That's, I imagine, euphoric, you know, for a feeling to be a part of. When you, you guys have had, you know, some time, and I've always stated that artists, musicians, there's not like vacation, because, you know, and there's times when you're not on tour. A lot of that time can be studio time or writing time. Even if you are on a vacation, you're on a beach somewhere, or you're, you know, doing something, that there's always something, you know, mentally that's going, you can observe something from across, you know, the beach and say, and all of a sudden you have, like, you know, the start of a fucking chorus in your brain going, oh shit, you know, and you're grabbing your phone and you're starting to, like, I better write that down. But when you do have time, you know, when you have time to kind of, you know, detach from the world and, you know, maybe unplug the phone for a while, you know, what does Joe Cotela do to kind of, you know, recover? You know, you guys have a brutal show, you know, when you're on long tours, it can be rigorous life on the road. But what do you do to kind of detach a little bit, you know, to unplug the heaviness, you know, take the headphones out for a little bit and kind of just, you know, find some peace for yourself? What's your chill?
Yeah. Man, I'm trying to think.
When's the last time I relaxed? I don't know. It was 2016, maybe.
I mean, I've gotten, you know, way into, you know, working out, going to the gym, lifting weights. Although I have headphones in when I'm doing that. But I mean, you know, sometimes I'll work out to jazz or something like that, you know, or like maybe some lo-fi hip hop beats or something chill. So working out for sure. I do set aside time to meditate as much as I can, stretching, things like that. You know, and then just like anybody, you know, I'll watch, you know, I don't watch a lot of TV, until nighttime, you know what I mean? And then I'll watch, you know, right now I'm into, Better Call Saul. I never watched that. Loving that. I watch Naked and Afraid a lot.
Side note, when we were setting up the podcast, Joe was wondering if it was videos. Like, I just want to make sure I'm not naked or something if we're, you know, live on YouTube.
But yeah, you know, I like, not to mispronounce his name, Eckhart Tolle. I read his stuff. I find solace and peace in the things that he writes about, as well as Joseph Campbell. There's another, Rumi, or again, not to mispronounce his name. So, you know, I try to fill my mind and my environment with things that are peaceful, you know, relax, or, you know, I don't really play video games, but I'll play some games on my phone every once in a while just to zone out. You know, things like that. Or I'll listen to music, like I was mentioning with the gym. I'll listen to music that I have nothing to do with. I could never write jazz music, at least right now I couldn't, unless I tried. I guess maybe I could figure out how to do it, but I listen to music that I have no connection with. And with that style of music, I still get the feeling of that magic of having no, like when I listen to heavy music, or music that's associated with me, it's like sometimes my brain will start dissecting what they're doing and oh, that's a cool thing. I should maybe pull from that idea and do something like that. You know, like it turns into work. If I'm listening to like John Mayer, or I'm listening to, you know, Citizen Cope or something, then I can just listen to it and enjoy it more so as separate things. So I'll listen to music, you know, whether it be jazz or singer-songwriter or like I said, I'll always put on Bob Marley like all the time. Like Bob's my man. So yeah, that's how I chill.
Do you have a vacation spot? Do you gotta go to? I mean, I'm not going to call you out because you live in Arizona and you're from Arizona and I'm from Wisconsin and we get like 4 days of summer and I think we're having it right now. But is there? Are you an island guy? Are you like you like opposite end of the spectrum? You're like, fuck it, let's go see some snow or something weird like that. Yeah. Like, do you have a place where you kind of like when you can get away? You're like, yeah, that's my spot.
I don't have anything in particular. I'm not a big snow person though. That's for sure. And I don't know if that's just because I'm from Arizona, but. Yeah. We do. I mean, we have Flagstaff is a city in Arizona that's 2 miles away, and it's up in the mountains. It's like not even Arizona. It's like you're in Oregon or something. Right. It snows there. I can go to the snow if I want. But yeah, I mean, I love the beach. I do. I love tropical, and then I also love, like a peaceful forest. I do love that. I love the idea of being away from all of this shit that I'm in all the time, looking around at it right now. I like the idea of that for sure. So yeah, like, or a lake or something like that. Mm-hmm. I love water. And I'm a Pisces, so I don't know if it's a water sign thing, but I love water. I find it very calming to me. And with being around in the forest, the trees and their stillness, and there's something that I feel like I learn from the trees. I feel like they teach me, by the way that they stand tall and strong, and they just flow in the wind, and the same with water, the way it flows. There's a great Bruce Lee quote that I don't want to botch, but it's along the lines of something like be like water and flow like water, and so I'm very drawn to water. My favorite color is blue, and I like calming things, when I'm separating myself from that everyday stuff.
I know you've had a busy, obviously since the first album dropped for Dead, obviously the tour cycle that goes along with that, and festivals and the craziness of, what would have been 2017, 2018, but now a new year, and you guys have had some time off. I know you've not been vacationing. I know you've been busy, hard at work. Yeah. I saw a post yesterday or the day before about your excitement level for the new album. Tell me about, the process, what this one was like in comparison to the number one, and what we can expect from New Dead.
Yeah. Well, we took a little more time off than I think we intended to. Mm-hmm. But we ended up getting in touch with Kevin Churko out in Vegas, and he's just a real busy guy. He's doing In This Moment right now, and he's doing Five Finger Death Punch right now. And he found a way to get us in there. So we got in there and did the album, and we're still working on it though. I mean, it's still happening. I have the majority of it with me right now, and we're making notes, and we're going to go back out there and work on it more and fine tune it, because, that's the sophomore album is important, It really is. And we have a lot of fans now, and we want to make sure that we represent ourselves properly to them, as well as give them something that we feel like they deserve from us. So it's a different scenario than the first one, where the first one was just like, let's just do anything we want. Right. And I think we still are doing that. We're still doing exactly what we want. We have to enjoy it. But now there is a bit more of, that responsibility, I feel like a little bit, as well as having, I don't know, it's just a little bit different. But so there's a lot of, and there's a lot of different influences to me on this album. There's some songs that are maybe, and I hate trying to describe what it sounds like, because then people assume it to be whatever they assume that word to mean. So maybe I won't even use those words, but there's some different influences on the album. It's still really heavy, and it's still really aggressive, but and there's still a lot of melody in it. There's a lot of groove. We love groove. We love something that'll make you bob your head, and we like that for stage too. We like to get everybody bouncing as one. We like that the unifying aspect of a groove. So, and it was amazing going out to Vegas and working with Kevin. He's done a lot of great things. So it's hard, because you say, oh, I think there's a little more of this influence, and then people hear me say that, and then they go, oh, he means this, but that's not what I meant. You know what I mean? So I don't want to use too many words. I want it to just speak for itself and let people experience it and get what they get out of it.
Yeah, I don't think people think of, when I think of heavy music, groove doesn't, as soon as you said that, like the opening of Anti-Everything just kind of came in and I just started going like this. Because I could hear it, and then Become the Enemy. And I'm like, I just, you can feel it it's really cool to, when you dissect it like that, to think of, here's these, these aggressive songs and, the vocals, but then you go, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, there's a little bit, you can head bob to that a little bit as well. That's cool. But you got to be, you seem excited about it. I know your post, you're just like, man, I can't fucking wait. Can't wait.
I am because we recorded it. A big first, we were there for about 2 months and we did it. And when you're in it, you're listening to it and you're just enveloped in it and you're doing everything you can. You're being creative. You're putting your body on the line. You're singing all the time, or for Dave, for the other guys playing their instruments. And, I finally got like a month or two to step away and I really didn't listen to it much. And then I started listening to it again and I was just like, damn, I love this. I was like, if another band put this out, I would love it, and sometimes I'll do it like that. Like I have to step outside of myself and listen to it a different way. And I'm just hyped on it, man. I just think it's sick. And I think it just feels awesome. It's got a good swagger to it. It gets me hyped. It gets me, it just gets me excited. And I was just amped on it. So I just wrote, I can't wait for you guys to hear that, because it's just like when there's a movie or music, art is so shareable, so something makes you feel something, you want to show it to somebody else and you want them to feel hope. I think that's what it is. Yeah. Is you want them to feel how it made you feel. You want to be like, yo, you got to hear this because this is going to make you scared, or this is going to make you happy, or this is going to make you think about your life, or, whatever it is. And, so for me, that's just my feel, just like anybody else, I want people to feel how it makes me feel,
That's cool, man. I think it shows a lot of, when you have that sense, I think of energy and enthusiasm for a project, it really, I think, reiterates the fact that this is like your driven passion. Like if there was a calling for you, that's what this is, because I think when artists, and I think that sophomore album is a big one for a lot of bands that can come out and have a lot of success, and then all of a sudden they're just like, oh, well, we got to put something together for the sake of putting it together. We have to have this thing, and maybe they lose that enthusiasm and that energy for the process. There's either there's a rush to get it out, or, in some instances, there's just a complete lack of giving a shit about it. Cause like, well, album cycle, let's throw some shit together and let's get back on the road so we can, partake in whatever the road brings you, or you bring to the road, I guess depends on, but how you roll. Yep. But it's really cool, I think, to when you have artists that are incredibly enthusiastic about their project and listen to it, like you mentioned, from like, this isn't mine. I want to hear it like I'm just like somebody handed it to you. And I totally get what you're saying about movies and music, or a song, or, even a book that you read something or you hear something, you go, motherfucker, you got to hear this, or you got to see this. Cause man, I saw it and my mind was blown. Or, if you read a book and it changes your life or it changes your outlook, you want to, share that with as many people as you can, because you want them to have that feeling, whatever that feeling happens to be. So it's awesome to see that fucking energy behind it, man. You're just chomping at the bit. And you're like,
I am.
Yeah.
I am. I'm excited to, sonically, it just sounds huge. I feel like it's just to me a step up. It's just, everything's bigger, in my opinion, everything about it is just feels bigger, I'm really excited to share it with everybody,
and to get back on the stage. I know you guys got some dates coming up, including you're going to be in our neck of the woods, coming to Rockfest next month, which is going to be awesome. I know there was, and I just always, I hate this because I feel for artists like so deeply, when I was doing radio, because especially when, first album, and you're out on the road, and fucking shit happens to the bus or shit happens to the trailer, because I follow a lot of, and friends with a lot of the guys and girls in the industry, and just go, damn, you just fucking axles break in and all this other shit. So I know you guys were slated to play there last year, and like Norman, Nebraska, or somewhere in the middle of BFE. Not that Wisconsin isn't, but you're like, fuck, dude, fucking bus broke down. And I know you guys were trying to get up there, but we'll be back to get back on the road this July. You guys are gonna have such a fucking blast. I just can't wait for you to be in front of 25,000 and faces will just melt off. And
it's gonna be good. Yeah, that was the only, unless I'm mistaken, that was the only show we ever missed as Dead, and because of that thing. And so it was, whether it was our ego or something, like we really we're not happy that we couldn't figure it out, because we can always put our minds together and figure it in a situation out. We couldn't do it with that one, and so it really hurt. And so we're so excited to come back, and we're gonna play it like we owe everybody a show plus the show, So we're gonna go super hard on it, and we're so excited.
And then looks like some dates through the rest of August into September, rolling out on the road.
Yep. Yeah, we're going out with we're doing I think like a week or so within this moment, and the Dead Wears Prada is on a bunch of those shows, and then I think Corrosion of Conformity is on some of those shows in August. As well as we just announced a tour within this moment as well with Motionless in White, New Year's Day, Hell's a Poppin', and oh my goodness, I can't think of the other band, Nasty, Little Miss Nasty. So it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be this like Halloween masquerade style tour. It's gonna be so sick. I'm stoked for it. That's in September, September and October, I believe. We're doing Louder Than Life this year. We're doing Shiprocked, which is early next year, and then we're booking a bunch more tours and stuff. We're gonna go ham playing shows again. So
did you do Shiprock? Was it last year or was that 17?
It was 17.
I always love hearing get off the boat stories after Shiprocked.
Yeah.
After Shiprocked is done, I always love the stories of that was fucking wild.
Yeah. It was a good time, man. I think this time I'm going to be a bit more refined than I was.
You're all adulting now.
Yeah. I'm going to try to, like we talked about the vacationing thing.
Yeah. I'll
definitely be relaxing a lot more and chilling on it. But yeah, it's a really good time, and I can really see the fans and the bands, and there's this great community vibe with it. I went up, the Beartooth guys came up on stage when we did our song. I went up with them, and everyone's just around hanging out, like the Nothing More guys, and He's Legend, all bands that I'm fans of that we just get to hang out, and everybody's just kicking it side stage, having a beer, and there's just really cool laid back thing to it. So it's a really cool celebration of music, and you can tell the fans that everybody gets to be so close. You'll run into somebody in the hall, take a photo with them, and say hello for a second, and it's a really cool experience.
And who would have thought that Caleb from Beartooth is a big golfer? It just. I met him 2 years ago. I remember meeting him, and just go on their bus, and we're talking about stuff, and his tour manager was like, "Hey, do you know any golf courses around here?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, there is some." Oh, Caleb's like a huge golfer. I'm like, this is why I ask the questions, because you never put into like context, like dudes that are just up on stage just ripping it,
right.
Like giving it all they got, just sweating out, and then going out and putting on some knickers and being like, "All right, we're gonna go catch 9 here at the local golf course," and pinkies up drinking tea. It's a great group of guys though, the Beartooth guys. I love those guys.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. Everyone's got a lot of fun hidden talents and things like that. You assume things about people,
yep.
or I guess we both know better that everybody's a person, and they do whatever they do. So
very cool, man. Well, I'll wrap it up with this. The first time that we met, when you guys came by the studio and jammed out acoustically, clean shaven fella, looking all fucking prim and proper. Well, not I won't say prim and proper, but clean shaven. And this is what, a year and a half, 2 years later, you got the full mo beard going on, looking like fucking badass motherfucker. What inspires the beard? I mean, was it like a fuck it, I'm gonna stop shaving and then just never go back, or was this like I can pull this look off, I got this thing down?
I always through time I always grew like a beard out for a minute, and then I'd get sick of it or whatever, and I'd change it. It just kept growing, and it looked sick, and then I did shave it off at one point when it had gotten decently long, and I shaved it off, but I'm letting it go now. I get maybe, I don't know that it's like necessarily like something I'm necessarily thinking of doing, but it feels strong,
Yeah.
Beards represent to me strength, like almost like a warrior, wisdom. They represent maturity and wisdom. And I guess, again, I haven't put a lot of thought into this, but, I guess now that you're asking me, because I'll do a lot of things subconsciously. If I'm writing a song, I don't even know what I'm writing about until it's done. I'll be like, oh, that's how I was feeling. I had no idea, but that's what I was doing. So yeah, the beard is part of that. It just feels strong right now. And that's what I'm going to do. It's what I'm doing right now. And I don't know, I don't know if something will hit me and I'll change it tomorrow. I mean, but for right now, it's what I'm doing, and it feels good. I've been, working out, just feeling like a boss.
I was gonna say, life good, man. Life seems good on your end.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty good, man.
So if I see you on the fucking Instagram tomorrow with a Fu Manchu, I'll be like, fuck.
Probably not.
No, not gonna go with the old Chinese man of wisdom, and you curl that shit up and do like a little Western look.
Right. Yeah. I mean, who knows? I don't want to put myself in a box.
I was gonna say that when you have that much, the possibilities are really endless. You fucking
true.
Start
maybe that's part of it. Is like I was growing it out. I was like, I got a pretty sick beard. Like this, I should utilize this. Some people can't do this.
I know. Like I told you in the beginning, man. I'm trying. My wife's opinion of it is like some days she's like, they told you were gonna look homeless for 2 months, and you keep that up for many more weeks, and you are going to be homeless.
Right.
You just itch under here and shit. But no, man. It's first off, fucking thanks for the time, man. Really appreciate it. I know you got a million irons in the fire, a lot going on in life, but man, you're compared to when I know you guys were on the uptick, and I think Anti-Everything was cranking out at that time, hitting the charts, and you guys are pounding the pavement, but you still have that fucking coming out swing and drive, but in this like harnessed cage of energy kind of way. You got all the fucking pieces in place, and man, I'm fucking happy as shit for you.
Thank you so much, man. Appreciate that.
We will see you in several weeks in Cadott.
Yeah. Can't wait.
We will. It'll be like a mini vacation. And then best of luck on the tour the rest of the year, the new album, all the things you got going on right now. Fucking awesomeness.
Cool. Thank you so much, man.
Dead on the socials and the website.
Instagram is Dead Official. It's DED, Dead Official. We Are Dead on Twitter, and Dead Official on Facebook as well.
Awesome. I got to hang on.
Oh, dude, rocking the hat. I love it, man. I love it. Yes.
20 years of radio, and I've gotten shit from almost everybody. This box comes from Dead and has the best fucking snapback hats ever done. Done, man.
Hell yeah.
Still rocking. I think I took 2 of them because I'm like, I'm going to go through the first one in about 6 months, and then I'm going to take care of this one. So still rocking it loud and proud for you, brother.
I dig it. Thank you, bro.
Awesome, man. Take care of yourself. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you soon.